Dear conference participants, we invite your attention to work on the topic, Planning Model for the Development and Construction of Thermal Power Plants Using Alternative Fuels with Optimal Investment Distribution. According to Jose Cordero, founder of the Faculty of Energy at Singularity University, USA, energy today is the largest industry in the world and an industry that is experiencing an unprecedented breakthrough in our era, when there is an exponential growth in renewable energy, significantly increasing the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix, encouraging investment in energy infrastructure and clean energy technologies, expanding infrastructure and modernizing technologies for modern and sustainable energy supply in developing countries, taking into account their respective support programs, are the main objectives of Goal 7 of the Global Strategy for Sustainable Development until 2030. According to the monitoring report, Sustainable Development Goals, Ukraine, 2020, developed by the State Statistics Service of Ukraine with the support of UNICEF. In Ukraine, the share of alternative energy sources in the total production increased and in 2019 amounted to 4% or 5.5 billion kilowatt-hours. Slide 3. Although in second place after nuclear power plants. As presented in Table 1, most of the electricity in Ukraine is still produced by thermal power plants. The share of energy generated from renewable sources in total final energy consumption in 2019 compared to 2015 increased by 62%, slide 4, but below the target of 11% set for 2020. According to my calculations, with a 90% probability, it can be argued that in 2021, while maintaining the emerging trend described by the polynomial model of the second degree, the share of energy produced from renewable sources in the total final energy consumption in Ukraine will be at least 8.8% but will not exceed 9.9%. Preserving the centralized heat supply system, as well as increasing the efficiency of its functioning, are important in the context of the development of a competitive heat supply market, which is the key to reducing tariffs for heat energy for consumers in Ukraine, where the risks of poverty have increased in many categories of the population, and where, at the same time, the tariffs of enterprises generating, transporting and supplying thermal energy, providing heating services for residential buildings and hot water supply, are growing. At the same time, the communal infrastructure is worn out and ineffective, which leads to poor quality of service, significant energy losses and maintenance costs. Slides 5 to 6. Low efficiency of heat production and significant losses during transportation, which, as a result, is reflected in an increase in costs and prices for services. A characteristic of combined heat and power plants built in Soviet times with worn-out infrastructure that has not been updated for decades. The main goal of my work, slide 7, is to analyze the current state and prospects of modernizing the fuel and energy complex and investments in renewable energy to achieve the sustainable development goals in Ukraine. Adapting an economic and mathematical model that is adequate to this process, allowing for a rational distribution of investments, as well as collecting potential sources of funds for development and construction of thermal power plants using alternative fuels on the basis of existing heat supply enterprises in Ukraine. The development in Ukraine, according to Directive 2012/27/EU, the highly efficient cogeneration and efficient district heating obtained from waste heat and renewable energy sources. The construction of a thermal power plants on waste is an excellent solution that will allow using waste from numerous landfills, waste from woodworking enterprises and agricultural waste as fuel. Slide 8. The most promising and economically feasible step in Ukraine is the construction of a TPEP using alternative fuels based on existing heat supply enterprises. This approach will make it possible to protect utilities from new independent producers in the area of TPP and maintain their position in the market. To solve this problem, it is necessary to take into account all possible options for the development of existing enterprises, as well as available projects for the introduction of new enterprises. The choice of specific options for the development and placement of enterprises is carried out taking into account the volume of investment resources that can be used to support and increase production capacity. The criterion of optimality can be the requirement to minimize the necessary total aggregate investment costs of manufacturing products and their transportation to consumers. An economic and mathematical model of the problem of planning the development and construction of thermal power plants on alternative fuels based on existing heat supply enterprises with an optimal distribution of investment resources is offered to your attention on slide 9. And its known parameters and unknown values are on slide 10. The mathematical model is a problem partially integer linear programming with Boolean variables, which can be solved using the search for a solution add-in of the MS Excel package. The existing obstacles in Ukraine to the development of green innovations in the heat and power industry are summarized in slide 11. In addition, in my work, I try to collect potential sources of funds for the development and construction of thermal power plants using alternative fuels based on existing heat supply enterprises in Ukraine, which are presented on slides 12 to 14. The main ones should be called the development of various forms of municipal-private partnerships to attract innovative investment in the industry, attract funds from international financial and credit and donor organizations, as well as the environmental conversion of part of the external debt within the framework of international technical assistance to Ukraine. Thank you for attention.